What up, Coconut Crew? Tropical Zach here with another video brought to you by hikingmyownhike.net. And today, if you are the proud owner of a Hennessy hammock, you are going to love the content in this video. This hammock right here is my very first backpacking hammock. It is a Hennessy hammock. It is the Backpacker Ultralight Zip, and it is a fantastic piece of equipment. The Hennessy, one of the reasons it's so good is that it has built-in suspension systems, has a built-in ridgeline, has a built-in bug net, and it is cut on asymmetrical, so you can sleep on the diagonal of this particular hammock. They're great hammocks. They're relatively light. They're very durable. I love this particular hammock and have used it for many years. But I do have a single complaint about this hammock, and that is that it is very difficult, if not nearly impossible, to find a good underquilt for it. Now, I have tried the Super Shelter from Hennessy Hammock, and while it is okay in nature, the big problem with it is that it is not very compressible after it comes out of its original packaging. It is loud, and it doesn't really bring you down to very low temperatures. I live in the Pacific Northwest, so a lot of times I will do mountain hiking up on some of the volcanoes or the higher peaks in the Cascade Range, and the temperature will get well below zero, down into the teens, and sometimes even into the single digits. And this hammock is a great hammock, but without a really good underquilt, it just isn't the perfect one. Well, after going through and trying to find lots of different solutions to that, I eventually came up with the perfect solution for the Hennessy hammock. I will tell you, it is specific for the Hennessy hammock. It is not necessarily one that can be used on other hammocks. So let's take a look at what we're talking about. Okay, when you're looking at most gathered end style hammocks, such as this one right here, where the fabric comes up to a particular point on each end, you happen to have sort of that bottom curve, a little bit of a banana shape to the particular hammock. And for most underquilts, that's fine. They are rectangular in nature, so the underquilts are rectangular, a little bit longer than they are wider. And so when you put one of those underquilts on, you can cinch up the ends to it. And when you cinch those ends up, it sort of mummifies or cocoons the hammock in place. Let me show you with one of my underquilts. Okay, as you can see, what I've done is I've put one of my Jacks Are Better underquilts down. This is a great quilt. I really do enjoy it. But if you notice, there's a fair amount of play in the sides right here. Now, the quilt itself is gathered up into the end on both ends right here. And it does a fair job of protecting you on the underside, which is of course the purpose of it. However, it does not work exceptionally well when you're out on the diagonal. On top of that, Hennessy does have these tie-outs for the hammock itself. And so when you have these tie-outs, there's no real way for it to go through the underquilt. You actually have to run it through these tabs, which puts the actual tie-out over the edge of the hammock. So for going on a diagonal, I have yet to find a really good underquilt for a gathered end style hammock. All right, so let's take a look at another option. If you are really going to be using a gathered end style hammock, you want to be able to have the underquilt encompass it as much as you possibly can. Not just up at the head or at the foot box, but also on the sides. And since the Hennessy hammock is cut on a asymmetrical design, you probably need an underquilt that's going to accommodate that. I have searched all over the internet. I have talked to a variety of hammock experts. I have been on hammock forums and other social media sites, and I have never seen or heard of anyone doing an asymmetrical underquilt. And I don't understand that, because the asymmetrical design, particularly for the Hennessy hammock, is a great design. I just don't understand why nobody's made an underquilt to be able to accommodate that. Well, after looking at the Hennessy Hammock website for a little while, I remembered that the Super Shelter has this one piece associated with it called the undercover. And that undercover is specifically designed to match the entire perimeter in the format of asymmetrical for the Hennessy hammock. So with that in mind, what I did is I reached out to Ben Smith of Goose Feet Gear down in Georgia and asked him, if I sent you the undercover, would you be able to build me a custom underquilt for the Hennessy hammock as designed by the undercover? After a little bit of discussion going back and forth about how we wanted the design to work, we were able to come up with the perfect solution. And you're about to see it now. All right, I've never seen this before anywhere. So as far as I know, this is the one and only asymmetrical down underquilt specifically made for the Hennessy hammock. And this is it right here. This is the actual undercover specifically made for this particular style of Hennessy hammock. And what we did is we actually took and built baffles into this undercover and then filled it with 850 down, overstuffed it, and then made the 8D nylon inside shell of this. And now we have an undercover for the Hennessy hammock that fits perfectly with the asymmetrical design. I'd like to point out a few features that we had in mind when we designed and then ultimately made this underquilt. So the first thing is we knew that we wanted baffles to go the full length of the underquilt, which of course it does, all the way from one end all the way to the other end. And then I wanted to make sure, because the undercover has this elastic shot cord built into it, I wanted to make sure that that shot cord stayed in place so that it would actually sort of bind up to the edge of the hammock itself and prevent any open spaces for drafts to be able to come in. We also wanted to make sure that any of the suspension hardware or suspension connections were also continued in this particular design. So we've got all of those things in mind. And then the very last point on this is, because the Hennessy hammock is on the asymmetrical and it does have these guy lines that come out to keep it on the asymmetrical, we wanted to make sure that there was a port to be able to allow those lines to go through. So this is the underquilt. You can see the high quality of stitching that goes on with this all the way around. And you can see how we have been able to keep the edges of this, as well as keep the shot cord still active within the particular edging of the hammock. And I also wanted to point out the port that we have so that we can stick the guy lines through that. So I'm going to put this on the Hennessy so you can see exactly how it fits. Okay, here we are. So this is the perfect underquilt for the Hennessy hammock. I want you to kind of note a few things about this, is that this lines up exactly with the edging of the hammock from end to end, and it does so on both sides. And then it is also cut on the asymmetrical design, so it does go out in one end, or one side in a diagonal and the other side in a diagonal, so that you can have the perfect diagonal lay in your Hennessy hammock. The nice thing about this is that the softness on the inside, because it is 8D with overfill down, does sort of keep you nice and snug as it closes in around you, but still allows the hammock itself to be used in the manner that it was supposed to be used in, which is asymmetrical. Versus if you have a regular rectangular quilt, if you try and lay on the asymmetrical, one end gets tight and then there's a big billowy side over here, maybe at the foot end. So if your feet are down here, then this is going to be billowy. This is going to be overly tight. If this is where your head end is, this is going to be overly tight, and this is going to be billowy. And those two billowy areas can actually allow draft to get in. And then the two tight areas where your feet and your head are, the problem is you can compress the down, and then it's not very effective. So this particular design has done exactly what it's supposed to do, which is to follow the layout of the hammock. I simply don't understand why more manufacturers haven't come up with this, but if you want to be able to have one of these, I would strongly suggest that you reach out to Ben at Goose Feet Gear and ask him to make you one. Now, I'll put his contact information in the description, and I'm also going to take this up to Mount St. Helens this weekend and do an overnight backpacking trip with a buddy of mine, and I'm going to try this out in the field and see how it performs. I expect it to have some relatively cool weather, and so I am looking forward to seeing if this is going to be able to work exactly the way that I predict that it will. All right, so here we are. We're up here at Mount St. Helens. This is at Chocolate Falls area. It's a beautiful spot, and I've got my hammock all set up. As you can see, and I just kind of want to go on a side note right here, I've got a fantastic hammock catch-all. This is made by Jared over at Simply Light Design. It is beautiful for everything that I'm using. I've got my underquilt in here, my hammock in here, my top quilt in here, everything that I could possibly need. And it also has these pockets that you can install into it right here so that you can put your hammock straps in those, and the hammock straps stay with you at all times. You don't ever forget them at home or anything like that. And then if you notice the top of this along here, this has got like a no-seam mesh, so it allows the air to escape when you're sort of compressing everything up with the hammock. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and pull the hammock sleeve off, and then we're going to show the underquilt for this Hennessy Hammock Asym, which I am so excited for this underquilt. Okay, so here's the underquilt right here. You can see I've already got the guy lines for the Hennessy hammock, the tie outs. Those are all set, ready to go through the openings right here. This is going to be just about as perfect of a sleeping experience as we could possibly have.
Well, good morning. It's the next day, and everything went great with this underquilt. It didn't slip or slide any place. It didn't let any drafts in. It was extremely warm. I think that this is the new solution for the Hennessy Hammock Asymmetrical. So I'm now out of the hammock, and it really did look like it performed wonderfully last night. I haven't done any modifications or anything, but this is just still straight on the hammock. It hasn't moved at all. It hasn't slid from the sides or anything. And I love the fact that it's still got the stretch cord from the manufacturer, from the Hennessy Hammock Underquilt Protector or undercover. It still has all the stretch cord where it's supposed to have the stretch cord. And then it's got the tensioner up here. Now, this works just perfectly all the way across. Look at that, stayed in here, kept it all asymmetrical the way that it should have been. Beautiful, fantastic, brilliant idea. I don't know why more people don't do something like this. Kind of put it in perspective for you. I am up here with my buddy Eric, and we are backpacking. And he's got a gathered in hammock and had never used a down underquilt, and so I let him use one of my spare down underquilts. This is a Jaxar Better, which, by the way, is a fantastic underquilt. And he was telling me how various times throughout the night this would slide off as he moved around, and it wasn't kept even or anything like that. So if you've ever experienced that, and look at all the gaps in it. I mean, there's just gaps. There's gaps all over the place. It kind of hangs out unless you're tying it over, which doesn't really make a lot of sense. So having that versus having something that just stays snug all the way around you, totally a game changer. So I know some of you are interested in the numbers, so here are some comparisons of the Jaxar Better 20 degree nest, the War Bonnet full length 20 degree Lynx, and the Goose Feet Gear custom 20 degree asymmetrical. Okay, so the Jaxar Better is approximately 80 inches by 50 inches. It weighs about 25.8 ounces. It has 11.8 ounces of 800 fill power that they overstuff by 25%, and it cost about $300. The War Bonnet Lynx is 72 inches by 32 inches. It weighs about 15.5 ounces. They have 9.2 ounces of 850 fill power down with no overstuff, and it cost about $260. And now the custom Goose Feet Gear Asym, that is approximately 120 inches by 60 inches. It weighs 28.2 ounces. It has 16.5 ounces of 950 fill power. That is 30% overstuffed, and the cost of it is just over $400.
Hey, thanks for taking time to watch this video. I hope you found value in the content, and if you did, please do consider subscribing to the channel and leaving a thumbs up or a like for this particular video. It does help other people find the content. I'll leave all sorts of details down in the description portion of the video down here at the bottom, including how to contact Goose Feet Gear, all the details about the hammock, all the details about the underquilt. But if you have additional questions or if you have any comments, please do leave them in the comments section. I do read each and every one of them, and I do respond to all of them so that you know that I'm trying to help you become a better backpacker. If you're going out and you're going to enjoy the outdoors, please do remember one simple axiom. Every day just gets better and better.